Now, as I said, it's fine for people to have an opinion, but if we entitle people to it, then it eradicates the formality of opinions changing. For example, I could see you walking past a playground with a bag of sweets in your hand, right? I could generate the opinion that you're a paedophile, right? However, if I acknowledge the situation and acknowledge that my opinion is merely transitory, then I would accept the situation that you are merely walking past a playground with a bag of sweets in your hand. No opinion needed whatsoever. So, therefore, you see that opinion is fine, but the lesson we need to accept is that opinion is nothing more than preconceptions ahead of fact, and therefore they're completely undeserving of the grounding of entitlement. We need to recognise that in order for us to progress on this planet as a species, we need to outgrow the value of opinion over fact. When we arrive at decisions using the scientific method, we realise that merely making them with unreliable, biased and subjective human opinion is completely inefficient and in fact obsolete. And as for if that question had you a little off kilter maybe, here's one to wrap your brains around. Is the statement "I'm offended" an intellectually honest and solid position? Who thinks so? No? So I would say the vast majority of you do think so. No, don't think so, sorry. Okay, well, yeah. Is the statement "I'm offended" an intellectually honest and logically solid position?
Could be.
Could be.
Logical.
Well, think about exactly what it means and implies to be offended. To bring it to a closer point, what actually happens when you're offended? Nothing. So why should being offended be something that can be morally or legally legislated? You know, the act of being offended is not like gravity. It's not objective, it's subjective. Something that offends you may not offend me. Therefore, what do we find? We find that offence is taken and not given. Think about it. When someone says "no offence," what is the general reply? None taken. So why do we use this logical fallacy to begin with? Why do we believe that it can hold any weight? Could it be because there has arisen a value of censorship that we've been taught so that we can have carte blanche to silence someone else, or derail or stop a train of thought purely because they have chosen to maintain an emotional attachment to a certain issue, but not only that, but a certain view on that issue? Is that progressive? The issue of offence is, as I've said, a subjective act. So when we consider information as nothing more than what it is, just information, then we stop being offended, because we are taking the information in with no emotional attachment to a certain outcome. Punishment, an adequate method to deal with so-called crime. Who thinks so? You can tell I'm in a kind of a good audience tonight. So I'd say the vast majority of you don't think so. Yeah. Okay, we need to, as a culture, we need to look a little deeper at this issue. Is it even appropriate to separate individuals who commit crimes, ergo slamming them in cells? I would answer with a huge resounding no. The very act of incarceration is actually a form of violence, and it doesn't do anything for the rehabilitation of criminals, because what kind of people will you be associating with in prison? The same kinds of people who have been conditioned into aberrant behaviours. Seriously, we as a species really need to get over ourselves in respect of how we react towards and treat criminals. In particular, when it comes to individuals who have committed acts such as rape, murder and child molestation. Currently, the common and even accepted methodology, first off, is to label them as sick, perverts or monsters, right? And many other names which are just as vicious as the crimes themselves. While it is completely counterproductive and surprisingly divisive, I can understand the reaction and behaviour of such people. They feel so personally affronted, disgusted and emotionally injured by the very hearing or reading of such an act that they project the intended hatred, will for vengeance and hostility at anyone who committed the crime and anyone who doesn't feel the exact same way they do. The point is that when we label these individuals with the hateful words that we do, we are conveniently overlooking what has actually caused this behaviour to manifest in them. Was Ed Gein born a serial murderer? No. He was made into one by years of physical, verbal, and emotional abuse, not to mention the firebrand religious indoctrination at the hands of his mother. We need to move from punishment to positive reinforcement. We need to be looking into what has caused this behaviour, not extracting our pound of flesh and perpetuating the whole problem through a revenge mentality. The reason so many commit crimes is down to how we learn and what we develop as a means to get what we need. In a world where we would have what we need, what propensity is there for crime? What criminals need is actually the opposite to what we currently dish out to them. They need to be treated like human beings. Ultimately, they need what they were never given: love. So you see, ladies and gentlemen, as humanity, we have lost our way. We are less than what we could be. We see ourselves as we like to be or how we want to be, but never how we need to be, for what we need to do, for where we need to go. We have gorged ourselves for far too long on the values of materialism, apathy, and hostility. We are uncomfortable at looking a little deeper and seeing what lies at the bottom of everything. We're scared to look because we've created a fear of what we could possibly find. However, what we're really doing is holding ourselves back from our true potential, which is nothing more than positivity and creativity. You see, that's the thing. We are human beings. We are capable of anything given sufficient conditioning. However, that does not give us dominion over the lands and seas that we live on. Ooh, 2 seconds. Yeah. So this brings us back to the question I mentioned in the beginning. How do we get from here to there? Back when I was in secondary school, or as we call it around here, high school, one of the English classrooms was decorated with pieces of paper on the walls with inspirational quotes on them. One of said quotes read, "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." And this is absolutely true. So what is our first step, as it were? It is our change in values, our change of thought and consciousness. It all starts right here in yourself. You must change first because of that initial spark within you to move towards better values and behaviours. Or as Mohandas Gandhi said, we must be the change we want to see in the world. It all starts with you. Instead of simply talking the talk, you start to walk the walk. Not only does this improve your own life and mind, but it radiates to everyone around you and influences and inspires them to also seek the change within themselves. You see, this doesn't just imply being better people. This also implies that by becoming the change, we are also becoming our own leaders, more mature as free-thinking and self-governing human beings that do not need to be governed or provided for by any other person who we are taught holds more authority than ourselves. We would truly become adults, because adults guide and provide for themselves. A child is in need of protection and sustenance because they haven't grown to do that for themselves. Let us grow up. When it comes to the technology and methods that we have, and thus the infrastructure we can build and the things we can do for, say, a resource-based economic model, allow me to be blunt. These things are meaningless, irrelevant, useless, and in fact dangerous if they are not applied using the correct values. You see, currently we are clinging on to obsolete and even draconian values while armed with nanotech weaponry the size of a marble that can obliterate all life on Earth. Do we currently hold the right mindset for the capabilities we have right now? Of course not. So let's evolve up here and in here first. I'll end my presentation today with a quote from Chinmoy Kumar Goze, and it is this: "When the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace." Thank you very much.